A long time ago, in a gaming world that seems very, very far away, the only Star Wars games were flight simulators. But then...
And first-person shooters.
Okay, but then...
Real-time strategy games as well.
Okay, but then...
There was also like a platformer on the Game Boy.
But then... Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic came along and did what RPGs do best. Let us live in the world George Lucas put on screen way back in 1977. And it was amazing. I played through KOTOR multiple times, trying different builds, choices, and party combinations. For the first time, it felt like I was telling my own story in the Star Wars galaxy. But all these years later, does this special game hold up? Is it a timeless classic as hallowed as the Jedi Code? Or a dated piece of space trash covered in Dianoga spit?
Be careful, Padawan. Only Sith deal in absolutes.
In some ways, KOTOR not only holds up, it's still the best of its kind. But in others, well...
What a piece of junk!
Let's start by looking at what KOTOR does excellently. Use of the license. No matter what type of game you're considering, letting the player live the fantasy covers everything from macro elements like story and characters, down to the small details of user interface, item description, and movement animations. And even though it's a bit sketchy on some of those details, KOTOR makes sure there's as much Star Wars stuff around as possible. Blasters, you're gonna shoot 'em. Lightsabers, you're gonna swing 'em. Swoops, you're gonna race 'em. TIE fighters, you're gonna explode 'em. The deep nuances of Jedi philosophy, you're gonna calmly discuss 'em. And pilot the fastest ship in the galaxy, you're gonna sit quietly in the back while Karth does that.
Hell yeah! Wait, what?
From a holistic standpoint, KOTOR does its damnedest to scratch that Star Wars itch. And the only real critique I have would be of the awkward transition you go through after the starting planet from hardened trooper, daring smuggler, or scrappy scrapper, to slashy Jedi, talky Jedi, or indecisive Jedi. They basically start you off in one part of the experience before saying, "Pfft, why would you want to be a lame old bounty hunter when you could be a Jedi?"
Some of us like bounty hunters.
Now, let's move on to the gameplay, and sadly, this has not aged well. Starting with the basic combat. KOTOR is a turn-based RPG that tries real hard to be real-time. You can pause to give the characters orders, or rely on their barely there AI to fight for you.
It goes about as well as can be expected, i.e. not well at all.
There's not a huge amount of strategy as long as you have at least one frontline fighter, one ranged fighter, and hopefully one support. You'll be good for most fights. Finally, the abilities and feats your characters have access to feel like they're ripped right out of D&D.
There's a reason for that.
When not in combat, you'll usually be exploring or solving puzzles. Of the two, exploration is much better done. This is partially due to the fact that there are a bunch of different planets, all of which are really cool, unique places to explore. That goes a long way. And it goes even further when those planets are locations in the Star Wars galaxy you've wanted to visit, like Kashyyyk or Tatooine. Sadly, they're not so good at putting worthwhile stuff for you to find.
An Easter egg hunt with no eggs is a nature walk.
Let me give you an example. On Korriban, one of the game's best areas, there's a quest to enter the tomb of an ancient Sith Lord named Ajunta Pall, to retrieve his dark side attuned sword of awesomeness, only to find that it's not really that awesome. You'll scour Force-sensitive caves and turn up not a single worthwhile lightsaber crystal, and you'll fight some tough enemies for nothing more than a handful of credits. Now onto the puzzles. Unlike Jade Empire, whose puzzles might have challenged an 8-year-old, KOTOR's crazy math puzzles will from time to time make you want to put your fist through your monitor. There is usually a way around this with hacking or social skills, but it's tiresome nonetheless. The last aspect of gameplay I want to touch on are the force powers. And of all the mechanics in KOTOR, this is one of the most frustrating. But on the other hand, I can't say it's not true to the setting. Anyway, you have dark side and light side force powers, and the more heavily invested you are on one of those sides, the cheaper your alignment powers will be.
Sorry, Grey Jedi.
What this means is you're committed hard, like super hard to your alignment. And that's a killer to the RP aspect of this RPG. Now let's move on to the writing, BioWare's bread and butter. Character interactions have always been key to the way BioWare tells their stories, and KOTOR is full to the brim with interesting characters both in and out of the party. One of the best mechanics is the ability to stop and get your companion's thoughts on things as you travel about the various worlds, along with their conversations with each other. A mechanic that has appeared over and over again in almost every BioWare RPG. It really helps you get to know your friends and their opinions on the state of the galaxy. Now, as great as your cadre of misanthropes are, the single greatest triumph of KOTOR's writing is its antagonist, Revan. This Sith Lord embodies so many interesting philosophical takes on good and evil, and how and when to use power he completely steals the show. And how he figures into what is still one of the greatest twists in gaming is fantastically executed.
His stylish mask and hood combo also helps.
Now I need to talk about the moral choice system. At certain key moments in the game, you'll be given the option to perform light side or dark side actions, which will give you light side or dark side points, and it will shift your alignment. Unfortunately, rather than anything complex or nuanced, you're really just choosing whether you're simperingly good or ridiculously evil. Finally, KOTOR's contribution to the lore and philosophy of the Star Wars galaxy is fantastic. One of the best levels in the game is set on the Sith Academy world of Korriban. The mission is to infiltrate the Academy, and while you're there, you'll get to dig into both Sith history and philosophy. Take part in power struggles, curry favor, and uncover the dark secrets buried with the most exalted lords of the Sith. Though it's not on quite the same level, the Jedi equivalent on Dantooine is also very well done. You learn the Jedi Code, settle disputes, protect the people, and even solve a murder.
In short, you get to be the guardian of peace and justice.
Finally, I want to look at the art direction. KOTOR is set 4,000 years before the rise of the Empire, but somehow they still have Star Destroyers, TIE Fighters, and all kinds of recognizable stuff from the movies.
They should probably have made it more like 400 years ago if that was their plan.
Complain if you must about the lack of technological advancement, they still get the look and feel of everything right. Capital ships are big and intimidating, blasters and lightsabers sound just like they should, and just about every alien you expect puts in an appearance.
Not true. There's no Ewok hunting minigame.
But this is basically a crutch for the voice acting department, as you'll be hearing the same wacky alien noises over and over and over again. The worst offender by far is the Selkath planet Manan, which features, among other things, the player character going on trial. And that's like 10 full minutes of silly fish sounds. Finally, you're going to see a lot of copies of the same dude because we only had so many heads, I guess. Okay, now it's time to break down the good and the bad in Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. On the light side, BioWare's excellent writing, characters, and lore, along with care for evoking the feel of the Star Wars galaxy, have definitely stood the test of time. On the dark side, the actual mechanics of combat, the narrative railroad that is light side and dark side, and the limited art assets are definitely dated by modern standards. Delivering a binary yes or no is never easy, but the question is, does KOTOR hold up even after Mass Effect, Skyrim, and Wild Hunt? I'll say that if you can get past the clunky mechanics and underwhelming art assets, you'll find that KOTOR is still a must-play for any Star Wars fan. Now, if you're interested in more reviews of anime, movies, TV shows, comic books, or video games, check out my channel right here on YouTube. And find my Facebook and Deviantart pages for video updates and more. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.
Hey kids, today's show is brought to you by the letter 4 and the number potato! I'm a stupid private.